from? And where are we going?
A warm welcome to Red Ice Creations Radio. Thank you for tuning in to our broadcast. This is Henrik Palmgren coming to you from the west coast of Sweden up in Scandinavia. Our radio program is available around the globe, where internet is available through our website redicecreations.com. News, radio, film and much more. Every Sunday and Thursday we are here with a new radio program talking with interesting researchers about important topics. And I'm glad you're here today because we do have an important topic and an interesting guest with us. It's a real treat to have David Icke with us on the line. We had David with us for the first time in May last year. It's been a while, so we couldn't be happier to have him back with us again. David is behind titles such as Children of the Matrix, The Biggest Secret, Tales from the Time Loop, just to name a few. And he's got a brand new one out called The David Icke Guide to the Global Conspiracy and How to End It. This book investigates and examines many subjects and aspects of the conspiracy and connects the dots. The picture that appears once you understand how it all fits together is astounding. This is the book that will wake up the masses and reveal at last in an undeniable way the incredible level of control a covert and evil controlling force has had over humanity for thousands of years. I'm looking forward to talk more about his latest book, new research, latest developments and much more. Before we say hello to our guest, I just want to mention David's website, davidicke.com, up-to-date news, newsletters and much more. If you don't know about it, you need to get yourself over there right away and take a good look around. Much more for you to discover and dive deeper into. Welcome back to the program, David, and thank you for coming on Red Ice Creations Radio.
It's a pleasure, Henrik.
It's a pleasure to have you here. You know, I was thinking here as I'm going through some notes for our program today. You're continuing to put out new material all the time. Now you got a new book out. You produce videos. You do lectures or talks now and then. You have an excellent newsletter that you write every week. You keep a very up-to-date website as well. And it's not like it's becoming less, crap to highlight and talk about, but also positive developments are coming to the surface, and things are moving rather quickly in some areas. Do you find it more difficult or actually easier to keep up with it all?
Well, it's a different challenge these days. There are various challenges in my life which relate to people trying to undermine what I'm doing, which I guess you would expect. So that's one level of it. But it's a very different challenge to what it was when I started out nearly 20 years ago. The challenge then was to get anyone to show any interest at all. What's happened, however, is since 9/11 particularly, I think, and certainly since the invasions of Afghanistan and particularly Iraq, a lot of people have begun to look at the world and think, I just don't like what's going on. This doesn't just not feel right, what's happening. And it's not easy to understand and articulate to yourself why you feel uneasy. I mean, there are basic things like invading countries and stuff like that, but it goes deeper than that. And what I've done with the new book is connect the dots so that people who feel uneasy about the world, something doesn't feel right, can now see why it doesn't feel right and why certain things happen that in isolation seem to be one thing, but when connected to many other dots, people, events, they take on a very different kind of vision of what's actually going on. You can look at the invasion of Iraq in isolation, and you can see it on that level. But when you connect it to endless other dots, you can see that everything from the economic situation to additives in food to the electromagnetic pollution that we're getting now to global warming and what we're told is the cause of it, all these different things are actually connected, and when the dots are connected, the world starts to make sense. When we look at it without about the background research, it can seem very chaotic, very random, and some of it is. But when you really get behind it and you understand the coordinates being where this network of interbreeding, manipulating families want to take the world, and how they are using certain techniques of mass mind and emotional manipulation to get us there. Once you have those coordinates, then you start to see the world in a very different way, and what appeared to be chaotic and often bureaucratic stupidity turns out to be cold, calculated design, and that's what the book's doing. In fact, there's 28 chapters, and I'm actually calling the chapters dots, because it's when you connect the dots that you can see the picture, and because you have to research so many different subjects, vastly different subjects, before you can see how they fit together. I'm just letting people have the access to this 20 years of research I've done, so that they don't have to do it all themselves. It takes a long time, I can tell you.
That's right. I guess that one of the jobs, so to speak, that you have is to kind of constantly also distill or boil down, so to speak, the information, so making it more and more efficient, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, the more you do it, you start to see certain explanations, certain ways of explaining things, get people to understand what's going on better than others, and so you do hone down, and you get more efficient on the way you communicate the information.
Yeah.
But the key things are to understand where these hidden shadow people, as I call them, are manipulating the world towards. That is a centralized fascist state, which is based on, or certainly is encompassed by George Orwell's 1984, and then some, actually. He was probably understating the situation. They want to create a world government which would control all the major decisions in the world, which would control a world bank, a world central bank, different to the world bank we have now, which would dictate and control all global finance. A world currency, which in the end wouldn't be physical cash at all, it would just be electronic money, for which there are fundamental implications for freedom. And they want a microchip population connected to a global computer. And of course, when I started talking about that and writing about that 10 years ago and more, people thought it was hilarious, but they're not now, because the people are being microchipped. And even the excuses that I said they'd use to do it are being used, like, we must microchip Alzheimer's patients, or microchip your children, then they'll never get lost, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So that's the game. Fundamental centralization of power, and the world government would also control a world army. And a journalist said to me many years ago, "What's the point in having a world army? Because there'd be no one to fight." And I thought, "You're a journalist, aren't you?" Of course, the world army is there to impose the will of the world government upon the people, and this is why we're having now this mantra about international law. All the time, people are talking about international law. We must change international law. We must have international law. And what is that? International law is a law that everyone on the planet must obey. And so international law is actually this global centralized fascist state coming into place. And the European Union is just the most advanced of four superstates that they want underneath the world government. They want the European Union, they want the American Union, eventually for the whole of the Americas, and they're very close now to bringing in the North American Union, which is Canada, United States, and Mexico. Yeah. They want the African Union, which of course is already there, and they want an Asia-Pacific Union for that part of the world, all mirrors of the European Union. And then what we call nation-states today would just be administrative units to impose the will of the edifice of power above them. And when you look at the way the world is going, that's happening all the time. By the day that's coming in, we now have this European treaty to replace the Constitution, and the treaty and the Constitution are the same. They've just changed the name to try to hide the fact that they're creating a centralized United States of Europe in which the few will dictate to the whole of Europe. They're already doing it. They just want to advance it even more. And these things are not happening by accident or randomly. They are long planned. The European Union that is coming in now is exactly the structure that was planned from the start. But of course, if they back in the 40s and 50s, after the Second World War, when goodness knows how many people were slaughtered and maimed fighting to stop Hitler taking over Europe and creating a centralized fascist state in Europe, if that had been offered, what we're now having in Europe had been offered immediately after the war, people would have said, hold on, we're not having this, we've just fought to stop this. So what they've done is have what I call the totalitarian tiptoe, one step following another step, one following another step, just taking away more and more power from countries to the center, until now countries have no power if Europe says the opposite. And the same is happening with our freedoms. It's being taken away step by step by step by step. And in the end, people get to a point and they just look back a few years and they see just how far they've come down the road to tyranny, and it's been done step by step by step. So a lot of people just haven't seen it until they put it all together and see how far we've come.
That's right. And again, we're modeling, and we can see the similarities between the US and the EU. They're talking about bringing in a president in the EU, and also, of course, very recently they announced that we're going to have our own Council on Foreign Relations over here. Isn't that great, eh?
Yes, absolutely. The thing is that it's a very simple equation. If the few want to control the many, you have to centralize decision-making. You can't control the many from a central point if there's great diversity of decision-making in people's communities, in people's towns, in people's countries. You can't. There's too many points of decision-making. You can't control all of those. So what you have to do is centralized decision-making. And the more you do that, the fewer people are dictating to the lives of more and more. And, of course, another part of this is the more you centralize power, the more power you then have to centralize even quicker. And that's why this process of centralization in all areas of our lives, not just politics and government, but in business ownership, media ownership, all of it, has got faster and faster and faster, and will continue to do so until people stand up in enough numbers and say, enough, we're not having it anymore. Because the point to make is that the few can only control the many when the many allow it to happen.
That's right.
The power that these few have to control is the power the many give to them every day. And we have a situation where there's this idea that you mustn't disobey the law. Well, hold on a second. If someone passed a law tomorrow that said your children are going to be taken away, would you obey it? Oh, no, they say, wouldn't do that. Well, so there's a point. There's a line in the sand where you draw a line and say, no, we're not having this. So where should the line really be drawn? And it should be drawn a long way forward from that. Because if we have a situation where dark suits, usually men in dark suits overwhelmingly, are making decisions without any input from the people and bringing certain laws in, and then the people just say, well, it's the law, we've got to obey it, then we might as well just